Welcome everyone. My name is Sophia, and today I'd like to talk about my capstone project, which is business analytics for streaming platforms. I'd like to start by giving you an overview of my project. My research investigated the critical factors that drive success in the digital streaming industry. I specifically focused on viewership, subscriber retention, and overall profitability. I employed a quantitative research methodology, examined content library volumes, viewer ratings, and contract term lengths, employed a multitude of statistical tools like correlation analysis, ANOVA, and descriptive statistics, and found really interesting key findings, like that contract lengths are strongly correlated with churn, or that content volume, more movies and TV shows to choose from, doesn't always relate to more viewers. And also that maybe viewers don't necessarily care about the ratings on what they're watching. Based on my analysis, I've put together my recommendations for strategic content discoverability and the flexible subscription models moving forward that will make streaming platforms successful. This project aims to achieve several primary objectives. These include analyzing data from at least 3 of the major streaming platforms in the US, comparing different content library structures to determine the most cost-effective strategies, analyzing the relationship between viewer ratings and platform subscribership, and exploring how the length of subscription contracts influences customer churn. The successful completion of this project is also expected to yield several key organizational benefits. First, businesses can make more informed decisions regarding content investment by understanding which attributes drive profitability and viewership. Understanding the influence of user ratings and popularity can enhance the user experience and improve content discoverability. That leads to higher subscriber retention. The analysis will also lay the groundwork for future predictive models that will be able to forecast viewer behavior and content success. This provides a significant competitive advantage. Additionally, by identifying less successful content, companies can strategically reallocate or cut funding to those, and that leads potential cost savings and improved financial efficiency. Ultimately, I'm aiming to provide insights for better content curation and more effective subscription modeling to secure a competitive edge in the highly competitive streaming market. To guide my investigation, I've developed 3 core research questions. First, do platforms that offer more content choices attract a greater number of subscribers? Second, do viewer ratings or online popularity metrics on originally produced content significantly influence subscriber numbers? And third, does the type of subscription contract a consumer signs influence how long they remain a subscriber? Based on these 3 questions, I formulated 3 hypotheses. For hypothesis 1, regarding content library volume, the alternate hypothesis states there is a significant relationship between the amount of content a platform offers and sustained subscriber retention. The null hypothesis states that there is not a significant relationship. This addresses the industry debate on balancing a large library with user experience. For hypothesis 2, concerning viewer ratings, the alternate hypothesis is that viewer ratings are significantly correlated with high subscriber numbers, while the null hypothesis suggests they are not. This explores whether critical acclaim truly drives engagement or primarily serves as a marketing metric, given that some highly demanded shows have had relatively low critical scores. Finally, for hypothesis 3, on contract length and churn, the alternate hypothesis is that shorter contract lengths are significantly correlated with customer churn. On the flip, the null hypothesis posits they are not. This hypothesis aims to determine if contract choice impacts customer tenure, providing strategies to increase profit. The following is my research design for this project. I used multiple secondary data sets from Kaggle, including a simulated dataset from a fictitious telecommunications company. There were many limitations like data availability, sampling bias, correlation versus causation, and variability. The biggest of those being data availability, since many large streaming platforms keep their data internal and is not for public consumption. Next is methodology. I used a lot of descriptive statistics, correlation analyses, regression models, ANOVA testing, and more. The tools that I utilized include SAS Studio, Microsoft Excel, and Tableau. The most out of those would be SAS Studio, where I produced my final products for tables and data visualizations. And lastly, there are many ethical considerations when you're dealing with such a public sector, from bias mitigation and transparency, but mostly is privacy protection. I ensured that I didn't use any data that included personal identifiable information or anything about users. Now let's dive into the findings. Starting with hypothesis 1, which covered content library volume versus subscriber numbers. This hypothesis explores whether the amount of content in a streaming platform's library significantly correlates with sustained subscriber retention. I examined subscriber counts and total content offerings for 6 major platforms: Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Disney+, HBO Max, Hulu, and Apple TV. As you can see from the charts, Netflix had both the most extensive content library with 5,440 titles and the highest subscriber count at 221.8 million. Conversely, Apple TV had the lowest amount of content in their library and the lowest amount of subscribers. These two alone would suggest a direct relationship, supporting the idea that more content leads to more subscribers. But then you look at Hulu, which is an outlier. It has the second highest amount of content, but the second lowest number of subscribers. This challenges the initial theory. To further analyze the hypothesis, I performed a correlation analysis between the two. The Pearson correlation coefficient between the number of titles and total subscriber count was 0.62407. This indicates a strong positive correlation. However, the p-value was 0.1854, and that means it's not statistically significant. The lack of statistical significance is most likely due to the low number of observations. This serves as a good example that correlation does not equal causation. Just because the two variables are correlated doesn't mean one causes the other. With all this evidence, the null hypothesis is accepted and the alternative is rejected. There is no statistically significant relationship between the amount of content a platform offers in its library and sustained subscriber retention. Next is hypothesis 2. This hypothesis examined whether audience scores significantly influence subscriber numbers. For this, I used Rotten Tomatoes scores for original content across the same 6 streaming platforms. The first step was to prepare the data by converting the audience and critic scores from text strings, such as percentages, into usable decimal values. Next, I generated a histogram and a line graph of the same results to visualize the distribution of viewer ratings across each platform. As you can see, it looks like all streaming services' viewer rating distributions are skewed to the left, which tells us that viewers generally tend to rate content higher rather than lower. Amazon Prime Video, in particular, has the largest amount of content rated over 80%. Next, I used the subscriber numbers from the previous analysis and performed a one-way ANOVA analysis between the average platform ratings and the subscriber numbers. The initial results showed a low F value, which indicates that the differences in average ratings between the subscriber groups is only slightly greater than the variation, and that suggests a weak correlation. The p-value was 0.064, which is just above the conventional 0.05 threshold for statistical significance. However, when I ran the Levine and Welch's method ANOVA analyses, their p-values were 0.0478 and 0.03 respectively. While they also had the same low F value, these p-values suggest that the relationship between subscriber numbers and ratings, though small, may be statistically significant and not entirely due to random chance. Considering all this data, I tentatively accepted the null hypothesis and rejected the alternate. This means that viewer and critic ratings are just not significantly correlated with high subscriber numbers. This aligns with observations that some highly demanded shows, like The Handmaid's Tale, for example, had relatively low critic scores but exceptional viewership, suggesting a disconnect between praise and audience demand. It may be more accurate to conclude that a few highly engaging shows, coupled with factors like cultural trends or social media hype, play a bigger role in driving platform growth. Lastly, let's examine Hypothesis 3. This hypothesis aimed to explore whether the length of a contract impacts user churn. I used a simulated dataset from a telecommunications service that specifically was filtered for customers who subscribed to TV or movie streaming services and then later churned quickly after beginning their subscriptions. The bar chart clearly illustrates the frequency of churn across different contract types, month to month, 1 year, and 2 year. And as you can see, the vast majority of churn occurred among month-to-month users, totaling 883 instances. This initial visual evidence strongly suggests a link. To confirm the statistical significance, I performed a correlation analysis using the variables tenor, which is how long a customer has with the company, and contract term. The results were compelling. The F value, as you can see in the table, was 278.08. indicating a very strong correlation. Furthermore, the p-value was less than 0.0001, confirming a highly statistically significant association. This positive correlation means that as the contract term increases, so does the customer's tenor. Or in other words, the longer the contract, the longer someone is likely to remain a user. Based on all of this evidence, we can confidently accept the alternate hypothesis and reject the null. This means shorter contract lengths are significantly correlated with customer churn. Based on these findings, I came up with a couple of recommendations. The first is refine content strategy beyond volume. Platforms should shift their focus from simply adding more titles to enhancing content discoverability and improving the quality of their recommendation algorithms. The goal should be to improve the user experience, making it easy for users to find content they love or haven't yet discovered. This can be achieved by using internal proprietary data to analyze how well their recommendation models are already performing and how widely they are utilized by users. My second recommendation is to rethink the role of ratings. Since average ratings are not a direct driver of subscriber numbers, platforms should consider how to create sticky content or shows or films that generate social media engagement and cultural conversation, rather than just focusing on high ratings. Further internal analysis is suggested. They could explore the correlation between ratings and profit over time, as a few highly profitable shows may drive more growth more effectively than a large number of moderately rated ones. It may also be worth evaluating whether displaying ratings directly on the user interface is helping or harming viewership. Does a low rating below a show turn a user off from viewing it? My third recommendation is to incentivize longer-term contracts. Platforms should strategically increase the cost of month-to-month subscriptions while simultaneously offering attractive discounts for annual or multi-year commitments. This could also include creating bundles with other services or providing exclusive benefits to loyal long-term subscribers. Another idea is for special high-demand events like live sports, platforms could offer a highly priced one-time viewing ticket to capture a new audience without the expectation of a long-term commitment. My fourth recommendation is to promote long-term contracts internally. Platforms have a valuable, low-cost advertising space within their own ecosystem, such as banners on web players or in-show advertisements. This space can be leveraged at a low cost to promote the benefits and incentives of long-term contracts directly to current month-to-month subscribers. This internal marketing strategy can be targeted and a powerful tool for converting subscribers and stabilizing the customer base. My final recommendation is to conduct further analysis on churn timing. It would be worth taking a deeper dive into when customers typically churn. Might there be seasonal patterns such as higher churn during holiday months? Understanding these patterns would enable platforms to implement targeted retention efforts or specific promotional campaigns to mitigate churn during predictable periods. In conclusion, this project has really uncovered some very actionable insights. Just because some of the hypotheses were rejected doesn't mean that we can't still learn from them. For example, the hypothesis regarding content library volume tells us that maybe more isn't better. And overall, there's a resounding need for more research using data that I don't have access to. The greatest piece of knowledge that was found during this project was the relationship between contract lengths and customer churn. This highlights clear and immediate opportunities for platforms to stabilize their subscribers and increase profitability. The streaming industry is growing quickly, and if companies want to come out on top, they must invest not only in content, but also in intelligent systems and data-driven structures. They need to move beyond surface level metrics and interact with customers and maintain robust retention. By doing these things, platforms can strengthen their market position and achieve lasting success in what continues to be a crowded and highly competitive industry. These are all the references I used to conduct my analysis. Thank you.